US elections are foreseeably over. The results are out, barring a few electoral votes that will be mailed in. But the big news that's coming in at this point in time is Donald Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. Of course, the pollsters, the bettors, all were against the fact that Donald Trump could return. The Democratic Party, of course, will have to go back to the drawing board. A big drubbing to them. Kamala Harris and her aspiration to become the next president, of course, quelled and squashed at this point in time. What does this mean for the world? What will a second term of Donald Trump will do for the United States? He's made tall promises of making America great again. And of course, he's been supported by some of the big wigs, some of the stalwarts, some of the people who in fact are responsible for contributing immensely to the US economy. One of them being, of course, Elon Musk, who stood by his side, was also one of the first few people who was pictured as soon as the early trends of his victory started coming in on social media. We'll talk about this. Dr. Erin Watson, international public policy expert, with us on the program. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, also joins us on the show. Mithali Nikore, economist, is here with us on the platform as well. Sumit Peer, senior political commentator, joining us on the program as well. Major General A.K. Sivach, defense expert, also joins us on the show to talk about this big news that's coming in. Dr. Watson, I'll begin with you. Well, Donald Trump is back, and how? Just like in India, even in the United States, the pollsters, the exit polls got all of those conjectures wrong. In fact, the swing states such as Pennsylvania that did go Joe Biden's way in 2020 have made up their mind that it's Donald Trump that they're going to be supporting, and he has been elected as the 47th. He will be in fact sworn in Jan as the 47th president of the United States. But the fact of the matter is, what were the key issues that people voted for? Back home in India, we can all see that immigration, the economy, the jobs, and of course, sensitive issues such as abortion have played a big role. They were supposed to play a bigger role for the Democratic Party, but apparently people, of course, think that Donald Trump is better in terms of his business acumen for the United States. Your thoughts, Dr. Watson?
Yeah, look, thanks for having me here. I think that, I'm sitting in Jakarta, not in Australia right now, so it's an interesting place to be watching the election play out. In fact, in the hotel I'm in, I went up and had a look around the televisions upstairs, and not one of them and no one sitting there watching the election, whereas in Australia, my friends and colleagues are all really glued to the television. And I think that's because the United States is just such an important partner for us and an ally, as our key security partner internationally. So I think that, there's going to be real implications. I think you're right. At the end of the day, all politics is local, and when it comes down to it, Donald Trump has won this election because people's lives are not better than they were 4 years ago. And, that was never going to play very well for Kamala Harris. So I think that some of these key issues, another reason we're looking to it so closely in Australia is it concerns people about how it emboldens conservative politics in Australia. We can already see today one of our conservative politicians committing to put forward an abortion bill that, could potentially change the dial on abortion in Australia, which I don't think has broad popular support like you see in the United States. But again, these big political issues that Trump talks about, we tend to look to. I think Australia, we're relatively pragmatic about, the good thing about Trump is that we've had him before, so we kind of know what he's like. And, we know that it's going to be a more unpredictable 4 years in terms of our foreign policy and about what it looks like for our relationships internationally, especially with India as well.
All right, great points there. Sumit Peer, coming to you now. How do you look at this news? In India, it's often perceived that the Republican Party has always been good for the nation. Even if you look at the terms of, George W. Bush, his father, Ronald Reagan, and some of the earlier Republican presidents, India and United States relationships have always blossomed. But the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump does come with a lot of baggage in terms of what he brings to the table. It was a travesty that, all the goodness that he was able to create for the Americans was all diluted when COVID-19 came about. He did not know how to handle it, and perhaps that is what did them in. In fact, if COVID did not appear, it was a probability that Donald Trump would have been elected for a second consecutive time as well. What do you think defines his flashy comeback? Is it his personality? Is it his support? Is it his ability to resonate with the American voter? Or do you think this is just, begrudgingly a vote against the Democratic Party, which has completely ignored how the youth of America have felt, when it comes to issues like immigration, employment, economy, and abortion?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show. And I think me and Gautam Mukherjee on this panel, we've been stretching our neck out for months and been saying that it is Donald J. Trump who is going to make it. And congratulations to President Trump now, we can say, 47th President of the United States of America. Vinny, the issues are very simple. When it comes to the good of the America, when it comes to the global good, we cannot have a puppet regime with a puppet prime minister, puppet president. It was Barack Hussain Obama 3.0 which was in power, and people did not want a Barack Hussain Obama 4.0 to come into power. They were sick and tired of that. Condoleezza Rice going and calling the shots. She was literally determining the foreign policy. You have this multinational, you have Pakistanis in White House. They were running the way we were running it. The American universities were taken to hostage. Wokeism has creeped into every university. Pro-Palestine demonstrations were crippling universities like Harvard and Cornell. And then the funding for Middle East, which was going everywhere, and then they were blatantly denying the rights of minorities. They were not concerned about Hindus. They were not concerned about India. They were very busy because of Mr. Obama to please the Muslim world. I'll be very direct. I don't mince my words, Vinny. Please the Muslim world and look at the interests of Muslim world. Now today, Barack Hussain Obama gave Iran from $4 billion to $88 billion, which today they are literally put the world on a world war and are threatening of annihilation of a complete country called Israel. Look at their foreign policy, this pinprick diplomacy, cozying up to Pakistan. What a withdrawal from Afghanistan. That was a shame, the kind of withdrawal they did from Afghanistan. That power, that stature what the United States of America had, that was all lost during Joe Biden. And this wishy-washy policy. I mean, you can disappear all the beggars from San Francisco and welcome President Xi Jinping. But don't you know the fentanyl, everything, every inch of fentanyl, every piece of fentanyl coming to the United States of America is coming from China. What is your China policy? Nothing. You are just trying to be nice to China. You're trying to be nice to the Islamic world. You don't dare to call out the Islamic terror, which is the most eminent threat to the world. You don't dare to call out the Iran, which is the most eminent threat to the world. You are still trying to protect them. And on the peak of an Iran-Israel war, you were trying Israel that will do an arms embargo to you. You were trying to tell them, let's do a 21 days peace so that Hamas and Hezbollah can group up and kind of screw you again. I mean, these kind of fiascos happened in immigration, uncontrolled immigration. People from China, people from Russia, people from everywhere in the world coming into America. Or you were spending billions of dollars to keep immigrants in 5-star hotels. So at the cost of American taxpayers' money, $35.8 trillion debt. And mounting every second, you are adding $100,000 to debt. 100,000, 100, 200,000, 300,000. That is the plight of United States economy. Your IPR is depleting. China is stealing your resources right, left and center. Chinese spies, Chinese infiltration and emergence of Red Jihad. Wherein Reds are funding the jihadis and they are doing the dirty work. The biggest example of Red Jihad is what Iran is literally put the whole world on ransom, including Saudi Arabia and UAE, that if Israel attacks me, I'll attack your oil fields. With this kind of fiasco going on and this kind of appeasement going on, where deep state, is calling the shots, where vested interest groups are really running the US administration, and where Alex Soros goes to White House 18 times for a coffee. What is the business of Alex Soros in White House? What is he doing there for 18 times to have coffee? I mean, all those things, and let me not get into that. Whose cocaine was found in the White House? Who was having cocaine in the White House?
Okay,
all those things, and Hunter Biden's laptops. Vineet, there's a plethora of disasters which happened. World needs a decisive leadership. World doesn't need puppet regimes. Puppet regimes are dangerous. You can plunge world into a world war and it can be never returned. And we can't have these people from China calling the shots and people of Pakistan and Iran, holding the world to the ransom. We're sick and tired of that, and so is America.
All right, Gautam Mukherjee, your analysis of what happened and what do you think, really worked in Trump's favor? We all know what did not work for the Democrats. Of course, Kamala Harris only coming into this fight, 3 odd months ago. She had never even won a primary before that, and so obviously this was a very uphill task for us. Do you also think that there was this sense of indecision which was apparent, and it was not good for optics when it came to still wanting to portray Joe Biden, who's old and frail, as the next candidate?
Well, all that is behind us now. You've got a vigorous 78-year-old who has done something only for the second time in US history. He's made a comeback after a gap of 4 years.
Well, there are people who doubt his cognitive abilities as well.
Well, you can't blame the Democrats for trying, but they have tried a lot of things. There's been a plethora of court cases. There's been constant name calling. The portrayal is that Trump is the one who calls all sorts of names to his opposition. Yes, he does. But let us not hold the Democrats as Snow White, because they've been doing just as much of it. The last speech that Harris made before the elections was to call him unhinged for the nth time. So with all that, and with the power of an incumbent presidency, they have failed. It isn't a close race. It is a sweep that Donald Trump has achieved. He has got this by the backing of all the ethnic groups, particularly the young people and the men. So the abortion issue just didn't resonate. I think in the end, the glaring inexperience of Harris, who came into it very late in the day, was decisive in terms of how the public voted. Now, Vineet, in terms of how it will affect India, I am so relieved that we have a clear-cut win, with Trump winning both the popular vote as well as the electoral vote, and the fact that he gets on with our regime under Modi. Modi has already sent him an exuberant message of congratulations, with pictures of him, hugging him and other such, warm pictures. I think we will do very well with America under Trump. I do not see the tariffs becoming a big barrier, because, just two things. Okay, there'll be some tariffs on exports. He can't single us out for favorable treatment. But he, at the same time, will cut taxes, which will improve the yields of all our IT people, which, after all, is one of our most potent exports and one of the most profitable exports. So, it swings and roundabouts that way. I think China will be worried because of the deep, basic chemistry between Modi and Trump, and J.D. Vance as well, who is a vigorous vice president. As Trump said in his victory speech, that I think I did well here. I chose a man with a brain, and he also has an Indian wife, which can't be bad, and an Indian wife who's quite proud of being Indian, unlike Harris. So, whatever portion of Harris is Indian, she put that under the carpet and tried her best to portray herself as an African American. The problem is, many African Americans voted for Trump. Many Hispanics voted for Trump. Indians may not have voted for Trump in that large percentages, but you'd be surprised. That's Arabs in Michigan voted for Trump.
But that's how the Indian diaspora is. They've always been, leaning towards the Democrats vis-a-vis the Republicans. And General Sivac, an important question for you at this point in time. Well, Trump is going to be, in fact, inheriting a presidency which is marred and plagued by a number of tough decisions. When I say tough decisions, you also have to look at the two continuing wars in the Middle East and, of course, Russia and Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has showed elaborate support for Donald Trump, coming back and saying that if Trump wants, we can reach a settlement. What do you think his presidency will mean for geopolitics in these respective areas? General Sivach?
Can you?
I can hear you now, sir.
Okay. So the point is there are two wars which are going on, especially Russia-Ukraine war is 3 years old and almost about a year plus is the war which is there between Israel and against Iran and other proxies of Iran. Now the point is, if we take it, these two wars are ruining the economy of the world. The food, fuel, fertilizers have become very costly. The supply chain have been erupted, and the business which used to go very smoothly from Asia to Europe via Red Sea, Mediterranean, and then coming to the most of the European country is taking almost double the time. So overall, if you see the situation today is pathetic, and it required a change. Let's see if Kamala Harris would have come, would there have been any change? See, she would have taken the same line which Joe Biden had taken. These wars should and could have continued. Because the reason is simple, that how do you stop Russia-Ukraine war? It is a frozen conflict. Russia has already taken 18 to 20% of the marshland of Ukraine. Whether it is Donbass, Zaporizhia or Kherson, it has taken Crimea in 2014. Is Ukraine capable of taking it back? You keep on giving weapons, keep on pumping anything and everything into Ukraine. The war can prolong, but the war fate can't be changed. So therefore, there is only one solution, somehow ever stop this war. And the only person who can do it, it is Donald Trump. And he's been claiming that the day he takes over, the next day the war will finish. How it will finish? Obviously, he is going to make sure that he speaks to Russian President Putin, also put pressure on Ukraine. If you don't give weapon to Ukraine, he will be more amenable for talks. The talks have to take place, ceasefire has to take place. Now come to the second war which is taking place between Israel and the rest of the Muslim world, especially the one which is Iran, mainly the Shia militant groups. The question coming is, it is not selection of Israel to go for a war. What happened on 7th October was a genocide. It was not called by Israel, it was put on Israel, thrust on Israel by Hamas. Now the question comes is, what impact is Donald Trump going to make? The Donald Trump fear will be generated that he will go all out to support Israel. He is the one who moved their basically embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and he is going to give a loose rope to Israel. He will give to modern weapon. What impact it will have? It will have an impact. The Iran will know it, that Israel is not alone. The US is with Israel completely. And in case if it makes a mistake of taking this revenge back, which they are claiming that 400 missiles are ready, then this war will not stop, and Israel is going to bounce back, and it will hit your nuclear installation and also your oil sector, which was excused, which was saved last time by Joe Biden. So the point is, today the fear of Donald Trump will make sure this war also finishes fast. Because the question comes in, Israel is nothing to worry, because Israel had done nothing wrong. He has to ensure the Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthi threat will minimize. So I suppose he will play a positive role even in Middle East, because he bother about the economy. He knows that how oil is very important. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman, they are all with US. And I'm very certain that Donald Trump personality will make a difference.
All right.
Now the third question comes is Indian. I just want to say, Vineet,
Quickly,
what
sir.
impact it makes on India and especially Bangladesh. Now the point is that what has happened in Bangladesh is a matter of a disgrace what the US has done. They have intervened, they have thrown a democratic elected government of Sheikh Hasina. They have brought a person who is a puppet of US, and it is a radicalization taking place there, anti-Hindu rights taking place. It is Donald Trump who had a guts and courage to say that he will stop this anti-Hindu, rights which are going in Bangladesh. I suppose he will correct that what has been done by Joe Biden government of bringing Mahmood, who has come there, Yunus Mahmood, who is a puppet of US and who is spreading hatred for Hindu community there. I suppose that will make a difference. The another thing which will happen.
Okay, all right. So I also have to rope in Mithali now. Mithali, it's important to understand we have spoken about geopolitics, we have spoken about the internal nuances which have led to Trump's ascendance as the president, the 47th president of the United States once again. But, there's always been a very favorable chant whenever Trump has been president or in and around presidency about India and India's prospects in its economy. What do you think this means for India's economy? Markets will soar, and that was already projected that if Trump wins, markets are going to do well. It's good for the business community, it's good for the business environment. But of course, there are also drawbacks to Trump, looking at India from the taxation angle, which Gautam also highlighted.
Absolutely, Vineet, and thank you for bringing me into the discussion. I think overall, when we read this victory today, it's a clear message that's coming from the US electorate that they are most concerned about the economy. And all of the other issues are pretty much secondary in the minds of a majority of Americans. Because when we look at the cost of living and the cost of living crisis that, the common Americans are facing, when we look at housing and the fact that, affordable housing is one of the biggest concerns today in the US, especially amongst the youth. And when we look at, economic factors like joblessness, unemployment, and the fact that you have graduate joblessness being at such a historic high, these are factors which have really swayed the election almost unequivocally. So, and that has definitely trumped the gender divide that was very evident. It was very evident in the, pre-voting era. When the, projections were being made, that a lot of women were supporting Kamala Harris. A lot of white women also were apparently supporting Kamala Harris, but that has not translated into the popular vote or into the electoral college votes, because even for women, the economy has come above the gender apartheid that the US is experiencing. And we have to call out, we might say that Trump is good for the economy, and that's unequivocal. The Republican administrations have been better for the economy and have been better for the global economy. But at the same time, I think it's a responsibility now for the president to really take this vote that women have given him to ensure that the equality and gender equality issues that the US is now facing are addressed and also redressed in that sense during this presidency. But having made that point, I think when we come to the outcome for the Indian economy has done very well in the last 10 years because of its trade relationship with the US. Merchandise trade has only increased. Our trade, in services has increased, especially in the IT sector, but also in financial services. And for the IT sector, this is a golden opportunity for us to work closer together in the tech space, because a lot of Indian tech startups and AI-based startups now need to work closely with American counterparts to come up the curve to improve their service offering. So this is really a golden opportunity for India in the finance sector, in the renewable energy sector, and in the tech sector.
Dr. Watson, also important takeaway from this election would be, a couple of them. One, of course, where does this leave the Democratic Party, who does not seem to be having a clear successor. Joe Biden is going to go. Is it going to be Kamala Harris? Is it going to be somebody else? And secondly, this is also highlighting a very crucial problem in the United States, that despite all the problems that Donald Trump had going on for him, including the court cases and the indictments and those documents missing from the White House and found in his place, what really people care about is some of the social economic causes that continue to prevail in the United States. And that's why they have voted for Trump.
So, excuse me, I'll make a couple of comments. First of all, I think that when we're talking about anything to do with politics, I think it's really unhelpful to, speak of different groups of people in really racist terms. Like if we talk about people of the Islamic world, I'm sitting in the world's most populous Islamic country right now, fantastic country full of fantastic people. I understand the political dynamics in South Asia, but I just want to make that point that it's just a completely unhelpful, very, very Trumpian way of speaking about the world. And that's why so many people actually also dislike Trump. And because of these narratives that push that push populist and politics that uses identity politics against groups of people and whips up so much hatred. We see it online, we see it in political discourse, just like we have on this panel already tonight. So the second point that I want to make is about the Democrats. So I think that the thing was about Kamala is that she was the successor, right? So that's going to be really interesting to see that how that plays out now. Are they going to double down on Kamala, or are they going to look for somebody else? Now, I don't know who that successor is. I don't have the answers for you there. What I think is, I think that, the point has already been made by Natalie. At the end of the day, and I said this earlier, this has been an economic election where people actually don't really care probably much about what's going on in the world, like just to be really frank. But what's interesting about the United States is there's barely any social protection system. There, you do not have value unless you contribute economically through work. And then you still don't get paid properly in the United States. People do not have universal access to healthcare. It is a really fundamentally broken system that should be a blight on the Western world. That's not the standard of living we should be aspiring to. Women have very few rights. There are these social issues too. So, I think that that's going to be something really interesting to watch internally in the United States, how that plays out over the next few years. Are people's lives actually going to get better? Because to me, what a better life looks like is being able to go to the hospital, no matter what your background, and be able to get healthcare like you can in Australia under our Medicare system. It is about going and getting a really good education and not being bankrupt for the rest of your life and trapped in a post-capitalist system that means you have very little choices and no value once you lose your job. So, when we say, we're voting for Trump and it's on economic terms, we want to have a better life, well, what's that going to look like? So there's a lot that we're going to be able to unpack over the next 4 years. Trump's going to keep a lot of think tankers and a lot of economists and a lot of policy makers in work as we all try to unravel what's going to go on. And for Australia, the United States is our, it is our key security partner. We do have our many natural arrangements, including with with India, and so there's going to be a bit of unpredictability there. But for us, AUKUS, for example, what is Trump going to do with AUKUS? AUKUS was signed under a conservative government here, but under the Biden administration in the US. So, will the United States honour that commitment? What will that continue to look like? It's gone off in all of these different directions, but actually we're going to see any support on the US side. There's a lot of unknowns. I think that's the key point, and I think we'll continue to be talking about it here over the next few years.
Absolutely. And Sumit, let's also not forget the elephant in the room, Donald Trump and his support for Israel. The ongoing problems with Iran as well. He's always blamed the Obama administration for strengthening where Iran is today. They obviously, just a decade ago, perhaps when Obama was still, the president, Iran was under severe sanctions. It was on the verge of becoming a third world country. But here it is again, revived and resurgent, even daring to take on the United States. Is that something Trump would want to change as soon as he gets in?
Vineet, if you want the world and Middle East not to erupt, you have to settle Iran. I'm using the word settle Iran, whatever it takes. Look, Iran had $4 billion of foreign exchange reserves left, and with the sanctions on, Mr. Barakat Hussain Obama, he went and he removed all the sanctions for Iran. They have $88 billion today. And that is the money which Khomeini is using to threaten the whole world, including Saudis, including UAE, and including us. And recently the Hezbollah chief was even talking, Naeem Qasim, recently appointed Hezbollah chief, has started talking about Kashmir 3 days back, by the way. So, these people who build terror proxies, who built infrastructures of terror, who are in a million people with few 100,000 rockets and these Stinger missiles and whatever. They think we will just annihilate this country because you're Jews. You need to die because for some Qayamat or then Akhirat to come, and then we'll take him, then we'll kill him. This perpetual killing regimes which build military networks for it, and was an American president who tried to do a deal with them. And what did Iran tell him? Oh, we will not enrich the uranium. Now today, if you look at what IEA has permitted them, they've enriched 800 times more uranium than that. Iran is on a verge of making a nuclear bomb. Raisi went to Pakistan along with his foreign defense minister to former external affairs minister to get the blueprints of the bomb. This is what the Irani senator has coached. And let me take you to Times of Israel a couple of days back, around 2 weeks back, wherein they said, Yaha Sanawa wrote a plan of 7th October 2023 to Khamenei. Khamenei approved the plan, sir. Sent him $10 million and told him, I'll send you $20 million every day. That whole project cost was $500 million. I'm quoting Times of Israel newspaper, the most reputed newspaper. So when these kind of regimes are happening, where regimes are paying others to slaughter people just because of their religious identities and all, so these people are very dangerous. And if these people are not controlled, they become immediate threat to the whole world, because for the sake of God, just for a second, if the Israel is gone, what next? They will go to Europe, they will come to India, they will go to America. Israel is a dam which is stopping a lot of, crap which is on the other side of the divide. If that dam is broken, it will start flowing everywhere. And let me tell you, if you look at the American economy today, $35.8 trillion of debt. Vineet, America gets $4.92 trillion of tax revenue. And you know what is the debt servicing cost today, sir? The debt servicing cost today is $1.132 billion. So that means 20% of the total revenue, 22% of the total revenue almost goes to serving the debt. And next year, if the things continue like that, it is going to go to $1.7 trillion out of around $5 trillion which would get in revenue. So there's a lot of problem vis-a-vis debt servicing costs. There's a lot of problem vis-a-vis the leverage. And how much is 1.13 of the Federal Reserve? 17%. How much leverage is your Federal Reserve? It used to be 1:3. Today it has crossed 1:10. So there is a big economic problem. Then you have Chinese influence. And let me tell you, President Donald Trump was the only president who called Islamic terror Islamic terror. He's not like Barack Hussain Obama, who went to Turkey and said, Assalamu alaikum. When the king of Saudi Arabia died, he is the first American president who went to his funeral with his wife. That is not the presidents what Americans do, but he went there. And let me tell you, Barack Hussain Obama came here. In our hostility, in our parliament, he said Muslims are being persecuted in India. He had the courage to talk that in India while President Trump was here, and somebody asked him, there was a Delhi riot which was orchestrated at the day he landed. He told him, no, the Muslim population is rising and second highest Muslim population in the world. So this all does not hold good. So, and who is the person who called Chinese virus the Chinese virus? And that reminds me, Vineet, we have been talking about a investigation which Joe Biden ordered with the American intelligence. They were supposed to give a report in 3 months. Where did the virus come from? I think that report went to Andromeda or Saturn or Uranus. It's taking a bit of time to come in. It never came in. Now, you should have the courage to call Chinese virus the Chinese virus. You should have the courage to call Islamic terror the Islamic terror. You should have the courage to say, no, Iran's nuclear assets have to be taken out if you want the world to be peaceful. Now, if you let these rogue regimes become what they are, how can a mullah wearing a black dabes threaten the countries? Oh, I'll kill you. Next, I'll kill him. Next, I'll kill him. What the hell is happening in the world? And world is trying to do peace with him. You can't do peace with these people. They are there to kill people. It's as simple as that. Now, Obama is the person who said when the ISIS was active, he said there are a bunch of monkeys in red jumpsuits. Now you know what kind of a havoc did ISIS cause. Vineet, this man has so much of blood on his hands, and he was running the administration just trying to protect some peoples and their interest and protect the interests of the deep state, want the world to get into a chaos and help some people to stick to the power, deflecting the world, destroying American universities, including mine, where where wokeism is there, in pro-Palestine protests are there. How did $3 to $8 billion from Middle East end up in funding American universities? Nobody looked into that. How did a Palestine issue become an issue that you will not let universities happen in Harvard and Cornell? That has been happening there. How did wokeism creep into this? How did you decide the gender of my children? How do you permit a kid to do a gender change operation and parents are not told? How will you start giving medicines? There are so many things which they have done, and for whose interest. And now for Kamala Harris, on Monday she is a Hindu. On Tuesday she is an African. On Wednesday, she is a Caribbean. On Thursday, she will become some multinational. I think she should write, United Colors of Benetton. By that way, she can every day choose a color and pick up as per her convenience. I mean, let's not be about this Indian thing, Vineet. She has nothing about India. She never spoke anything in favor of India. She
Look,
was.
I think with all of your criticisms, you need to, if you're going to throw stones at other people, it's also look inside your own house as well. I think that if we want to have a productive conversation about where the United States is going, that's helpful. But just throwing these kinds of insults around is totally unhelpful, and you wouldn't be doing that if it was a man. It's just so easy to pick on her. And, we've got to look internally as well, and I would say the same thing about Australia. We have our flaws. India has its flaws. The United States has its flaws too. But I don't want to run around. That's not a productive conversation at all. To call Kamala Harris the United
Dr. Watson, I as the India. No, I don't take brief from you what I say. I don't take brief from you what I say. And mind it, I have done more than 5,000 debates on TV. I don't take dictation on what you say.
Okay, all right, let's calm down.
I will say whatever.
Let's calm down. All right. Sumit, hold on your horses. All right. Dr. Watson, point taken. What she's trying to say, Sumit, is that perhaps focus on the constructive and let's not get into a debate where we have to highlight the negatives of what the previous administration did. But, this is politics. If there is going to be mudslinging, but Gautam, at the same time, let's also look at some of the aspects and tangents that only Donald Trump has always touched upon, and that in some sort of a way also makes him a standout president. He was perhaps the first one to extend that olive branch to North Korea as well. He's perhaps one of the first few people, in the political echelons of the United States who thought about the Hindus in Bangladesh. If you look at that angle, then Donald Trump is definitely, looking at scenarios from a 360-degree perspective, which is good for India.
Well, the point about being helpful is that you look ahead. And what the American people have done is rejected the Democrat point of view and all that it represents. And now a lot of it from the Republican point of view, and for people like me who back the Republicans, it was that the Democrats have never been particularly helpful to India, though I will make an exception for JFK, who, despite a rank socialist verging on communist in our country, did everything he could to try and help us. If it wasn't for him, China would have invaded us and stayed rather than going back. If it wasn't for JFK, we would have starved without the PL 480 funds. Now, but Democrats who have helped India are few and far between. More often than not, they do sly things like the last government, which has been sniping at India by using the deep state and Canada, while at the same time promoting the idea of the India-US strategic partnership. Now, this kind of thing disappears and you get a one-barrel thing instead of a double-barrel effort when the Republicans come. We would not have been allowed to make, nuclear power plants if it wasn't for George W. Bush. Reagan, was a little before the time, and he was focused more on bringing down the Berlin Wall in terms of and reducing the number of nuclear warheads and so on. He didn't do very much for India, but he was quite benign. He did us no harm. So I can't think of a Republican president except for Nixon who went out of his way to do us down. And that was thanks to Kissinger, who was pro-Pakistan and had a very different attitude and opened the door to China. And that was the Republican president who didn't like us and did everything possible and set the template for years and years because of our, if you like, closeness to the USSR. Today, I'm looking forward to a Trump who has the courage, as Sumit has pointed out, to change the world. I think he's going to discipline NATO into stopping this war. I think he's going to back Israel, but at the same time be fair to the Arabs in Gaza. I think he's going to stand up to Iran and tell them where they get off, but it's not the Iranian people. India has always got on with Iran. It goes back centuries. But the mullah regime is probably on its last legs in any case because their economic situation is not good. Ordinary Iranian people are too scared to speak out. The women are oppressed, something terrible. But if there is a regime change required anywhere, it is probably Iran, where the top leadership has been, ever since the Shah left, a matter of these mullahs running the place and promoting hatred against Sunnis who are fellow Muslims, as well as, of course, the Yehudis who are Israelis, and the Americans, the great Satan. I mean, this is ridiculous. It's medieval. We get on with Iran, but we cannot. It's difficult to get on with the mullahs. Now, we get on very well with the other Sunni Arabs now under Modi. We get on very well with Saudi Arabia, with UAE. At the same time, we have a close relationship with Israel. We have a close relationship with a number of the European powers, more and more. So in all of this, and the fact that India is rising as an economic power, if nothing else, we do believe that Trump can greatly accelerate the pace, not just directly in terms of how he deals with India versus China, India versus India, on a bilateral basis, but also because of all the problems he's going to meet head on in Europe, in the Middle East, which the other side has only exacerbated and made a very big, danger of a world war. One person does the wrong thing and you could have a world war. People are conducting nuclear drills. Putin is conducting nuclear drills. Iran is saber-rattling with all its nuclear-capable ballistic and ICBMs. America is sending hordes and hordes of bombers and aircraft carriers and so on to the Mediterranean.
Right, and General Sivaj, from a defense perspective, as very rightly and promptly highlighted by Gautam Mukherjee, what kind of change can we expect as soon as Donald Trump takes over? Obviously, Iran, we all know, has deep-seated facilities which are being developed at this point in time. Even if Israel wants to target them, they're so below the ground, it would require boots on the ground to take on that kind of a facility.
Absolutely. See, Vinit very rightly brought out, as far as the nuclear facilities are concerned. You see, one should understand why the Iran has not become nuclear so far. The reason is that whenever they are on the very close to becoming a nuclear, that is the time when there is a sabotage done or a direct attack by the American and Israeli. Though, of course, Pakistan is trying to help them out. But as on today, their nuclear facilities are deep inside the ground, almost about 2 to 3 kilometers, and also covered by mountain. So very rightly brought out that it's very difficult to target the nuclear facility of Iran unless you do a sabotage on ground there, which possibly is slightly difficult. But having said so, one thing is very clear, that Israel is now fighting this battle all by himself against Iran and its proxy. Now, the moment Donald Trump will come, he will put that sense of fear in Iran. You see, the Iran is thinking of now targeting back Israel. He's already put almost 1,000 missiles ready, Fateh 2. And if he does it, then Israel will respond, and he will respond, will be very robust. And this will enlarge this war. And this is not to the interest of anyone, and especially not to India. India has a very economic, reasons as far as Iran is concerned, because Chabar port is there. Also, we know that we are dealing with them as far as the weapons are concerned. We will not like this war to flare up to an extent it become a regional war. And the person who can stop is Donald Trump, in the sense that Iran will realize that in case they take this misadventure of hitting back Israel, Donald Trump will come directly along with Israel on it, and Iran do not have capability to face America. They have already brought USS Eisenhower in the Red Sea. They have also brought B-252 bomber. They have brought THAAD. They have brought, you can say that the latest technology in Israel. So I suppose the fact that fear of Donald Trump will make Iran to take a backstack rather than going all out, which he was doing in the time of Joe Biden. Possibly that is thing. As far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, he is very clear. This is a frozen conflict. It must end. And I suppose the moment it takes over, he will say, let's have a ceasefire. One thing is there, Ukraine will agree because he will stop funding Ukraine. As on today, every speaker has said the economy plays a major role. The reason is simple. They are saying that you are taking taxes and we are funding the war, which is a frozen war, which you can never win it. And it will also put on a NATO countries pressure that they should also fund this. So I suppose this war between Russia and Ukraine will stop. And Putin will also not like to prolong it, because it is neither in the interest of Russia to prolong this war. Some sort of peace will prevail. As far as India is concerned, I think Donald Trump will bring what all. You see, as far as radicalization, terrorism is there, we are on the same platform. He is deadly against the Islamic fundamentalists. He is against the China, which is a common enemy. He is very close to us in Indo-Pacific. Though Joe Biden, the one which has given more flip to Quad, to raising it to the leadership of country. But certainly, I suppose Donald Trump will play a very, very major role. The another point which my other panelists have spoken is also about Bangladesh. The way the Bangladesh is going toward radicalization, and the way the America has played a negative role there by changing a democratic elected government, and the way the Hindus have been targeted, that must stop. I suppose that will also happen. So overall, I feel it that as far as Donald Trump is concerned, he will be a great change for the whole world. He will look after the economy. His principle and diktat is America first. Why not? He is the president of US, and so is also the Prime Minister Modi. He said that India first, and therefore they will click to the best of it. I suppose whatever has happened for the good of the world, because some progress has to be made, and the progress will be only made
and
once
Mithali,
these two
let me
wars
also
stop.
bring in Mithali really quickly. Mithali, there is an effort and attempt by countries like China, to de-dollarize their economies as well, and of course other economies that they control directly or indirectly. Is that something which is going to be a worry for Donald Trump when he takes over?
So I think we need, when we look at the overall groupings that are coming up across the world, and when we look at, a lot of the different groupings that India also plays a part in, the Quad is one grouping which, over the last 4 or 5 years has played a very constructive role in bringing India closer to like-minded countries, in, even forging the strong relationship between India and Australia, India and the US, India and the UK. So, there's been a lot of constructive work that has happened in successive American administrations to bring India into these very strategic groupings, which is very important. Now, of course, when we look at the recent BRICS summit, which you alluded to, where there's a de-dollarization kind of effort, while countries like India, I mean, it's impossible to do it without a country like India in today's times, because the kind of trade volumes and values that India is doing, it's not possible for BRICS to go and say, okay, we de-dollarize, and then, the I is not there in BRICS. But at this point in time, I think what India is trying to do is to have more and more, one-on-one relationships in South Asia. India trying to, bring in that rupee trade as well. So I think all countries, to some extent, at this point in time, are trying to see how they can de-dollarize. But I don't see that to be a major priority for the American administration. I think their priority is really going to be on the things that are going to generate future growth and future jobs. And that's where, the impact of Elon Musk in this administration is also going to be very visible, because he's a person who's an innovator. He controls a large portion of the American economy, being one of the biggest and richest persons in the world. And with him putting that focus on electric vehicles, I do think that in the future there's going to be a lot of private sector interest in the renewable energy space and the green hydrogen space. And that's where countries like India should look out for opportunities and say, if there's innovation happening in green hydrogen, how can we benefit from it? How can we become part of that value chain? And then, secondly, also looking at the space race. I mean, that's really an area where Indo US relations have thrived, with a number of private sector space companies and space service providers coming from India. India really becoming a place where a lot of rockets are being launched because of the low cost and high quality that we offer. And I think that's really where India again can come in and capitalize on these new opportunities that are going to come up in the US economy. And then, of course, as I was saying, in the tech sector, that is really where we need to see a lot more innovation. A number of AI based startups already coming in. Again, someone like Elon Musk, his focus is going to be on the tech sector and how
Okay,
the
Mithali,
tech
one
sector.
second. We have a paucity of time. Let me quickly get some concluding thoughts from Dr. Watson as well. And then we'll also have Sumit weigh in on what he had said earlier. Dr. Watson, obviously, new president, new horizons, and everybody's going to hope that Trump is going to do better than last time. We all remember that his presidency was marred by the pandemic, and that really did him in. And he's definitely going to hope that this time around the changes that he set out for are completed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's going to have to be a man of action on all of the things that he's promised, and he's really going to have to come through on those day-to-day economic issues that people have voted him in on. I think that one thing that's going to be really interesting, last week before about, who's going to be Kamala's successor, who's going to be Trump's successor now, and who do they start to set up over the next 4 years, because obviously he can't run again. So I think that that's going to be interesting to watch, and that'll really sort of show us which direction the Republican Party will go into the future, because Trump has in many ways, as we've seen, been an anomaly. And I think that'll be something that we really need to pay attention to. Natalia's really right. There's going to be so many opportunities that do potentially come out of this. I'm in Indonesia right now, talking about the transition to talking about the energy transition. There's a whole range of digital issues which India leads on, but a whole range of digital issues that will come from the tech sector. So there's going to be this really interesting industrial piece that comes through in the next few years as well, with Elon Musk so close to President Trump. So they're the couple of things that I think will be really interesting to watch, and they're genuinely things we can watch as they evolve over time.
All right. Sumit, quickly, we have just a minute left.
I want to answer 2 or 3 things. First of all, when you're talking about the de-dollarization, was a very important aspect. Let me give you some numbers. Today, 89% of global trade happens in US dollars. I'm talking today. Today, if you look at the reserves of the world, 58.97% is in US dollars, another 20% is in euros. So between dollar and euro, they control 80% of the reserves. So if you talk of a de-dollarization and a BRICS currency, it's a far-off dream. And even if it's backed by gold, we can't. India has clearly said we are not interested in BRICS currency, because look, currency cannot have 5 fathers. You cannot do anything where you have to be in bed with China and depend on China's whims and fancies. What India is proposing is why don't we trade in our local currencies, which is a more viable and a sustainable option. That is still a possibility, but dollar is not there to go. And we need, if you are United States or if I am United States of America, I'll be very clear on one thing. Nobody fears American dollar, nobody fears American diplomacy, but everybody fears American dhamaka. You know what is dhamaka in Hindi? So, when push comes to shove, they will bomb a country, they will buy a country, they'll do whatever it takes, the dollar is going to stay, it's not going to go anywhere in the near future. Yes, 10 years, 15 years down the line, we don't know what will happen, but today, it's not going anywhere.
Sumit, appreciate you joining us, and thank you so much to all our guests who joined and weighed.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.